News 4's Weather Extra.
Welcome into Weather Extra on this Friday evening. Ryan, I was telling you earlier today, my career is a long one, and I look back at what we've done this week. All of us, I'm talking in the Wiregrass, and what we've experienced, it's right up there. And the coverage of this storm has been so much fun for the most part. It's been a really, really amazing week.
It has, and like you said, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the time that once our coverage kind of started to lull a little bit, we got some fun out in the snow. But to really wrap your mind around this historic week, even though the melting has been fast, hopefully this stays in our minds for a very long time.
The memories. I mean, to see the landscape covered in white, I just did not think we'd see it, but we saw it. It was amazing. There's been some melting this week, but if you've noticed, it's kind of differential. Some areas seeing a lot, some areas not so much. Let's break down the science with meteorologist Zach Webster.
You likely noticed on Wednesday that while air temperatures only got a couple degrees above freezing for only a couple of hours, we saw quite a bit of melting across many of the roads around the region compared to those grassy surfaces around the region. Let's take a look into why that happens. Snow and ice starts to melt once energy from the sun helps to warm the surfaces, the temperature of those surfaces above 32 degrees, and then that snow and ice starts to melt. Concrete, asphalt, and even some of your darker colored cars can absorb the energy from that sun a lot better, and they can warm up faster than you will maybe grass or maybe the tops of trees or maybe the tops of buildings. So with that, you get a lot faster melting on those surfaces compared to some of those grassy areas. In addition to be able to absorb the energy from the sun a lot better, it's also able to retain a lot of that warmth as well. So not only can you see some melting even after once you start to lose that energy from the sun, it also doesn't take as much solar radiation the next day to warm those temperatures up above freezing. Kind of an exception to that rule is when that snow and ice starts to get compacted. It can take much, much longer to melt on the same surface. Snow and ice that gets compacted down due to the weight of cars or people walking over it can take a longer period of time to melt. That's because compacted snow is a lot denser than untouched snow, and it has a higher concentration of water because you're just squeezing all of that water out and combining it into a much smaller area. More energy is required to melt compact snow than it is untouched snow. The melting of that compacted snow can also take a little bit longer if it receives less energy to the sun. That can be done due to shade from the buildings, as you can see in this picture, or even trees along some of those county roads.
Slipping and falling is a big concern when you have that ice on the ground. We had to walk across that little view that you saw there. Did you slip or fall?
I was close a few times, and a couple of my live shots, you know, I'm carrying the camera out there, and so I'm walking like a penguin holding this big bag. So it is, it can be dangerous for sure.
It definitely can be. Use caution again tomorrow morning. You know, the landscape has been devastated by this cold air. A lot of the non-native plants, you know, they really don't like temperatures in the teens or even some single digits. So some advice as a gardener for you as you look at your landscape. Number one, wait. All right, just wait, because we're very early in this process. As we go through the coming weeks and months, we'll kind of know how much damage was done to some of the non-native plants. So some tips here. It could take months to know exactly what was killed and what will come back. These plants can surprise you. Regrowth could occur sometime in April or in May. So just wait as we go through time. Another tip here, don't trim those trees yet. That dead foliage can actually help insulate from future cold yet this winter. And another tip there, consider hardier varieties to replant. I hate to say that because I like to grow some not so hardy varieties because they're exciting and they're fun, and you can pick an orange tree or pick an orange from your tree in the backyard. I mean, they're not supposed to grow here, but it's kind of nice to have them. Yeah,
and I mean, these are great facts too, but I am curious to see how much Florida and seeing like those plants and how they did with all this cold, because all the way to the coast, that's crazy.
All the way to the coast, yeah. We have some, you know, not so hardy palm trees in this area, for example, but even more so in the Panhandle, like Pensacola Beach, all the way through PCB. What an event it was. Well, we're tracking a pattern change now as we go through next week. We'll break that down up next.
And now, News 4's Weather Extra.
Welcome back to Weather Extra. One of the things we're going to try to do always on this show is to give you an idea of what is next. We did that with the snow event, seeing it more than a week in advance, and the pattern change that was occurring. So let's talk about what is next, what's coming up.
Right,
And
yeah.
it's going to go from one active weather week to perhaps another, not so much the week ahead, but the week after next looks to be maybe pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you in the southeast, just wait, because the weather
That's right.
is always changing, especially for this season. You know, we have the cold air set up, but then as we get that warming pattern next week, things can change. And like you said last night, warmer weather means possibly
some severe.
That's
it's
right.
that constant back and forth. I was just thinking of you and I in the snow earlier, and like if, back and forth.
Yeah.
It's cold air punches and then the warm air punches back. So let's go to the graphics here and show you the pattern change across the country. There's been a trough over the eastern U.S. and that has brought down that cold air from Canada. But as we go through this week into next weekend, that is the first day of February. Notice the change in the pattern, more of a ridge across the eastern U.S. and that big dip, that big trough over the western U.S. So there's that one blob up there over Wisconsin. That's that piece of energy that I showed you that brings that snow from the panhandle of Texas maybe up into the Midwest. We'll see where that one tracks. But there's another one. The atmosphere kind of reloads areas to the west as we go into next Saturday evening. So we'll watch that secondary piece, this piece, see where that one goes as we head through time. So that's what we're looking at 8 days out. What does it take to get severe weather here? Warm, cold, yeah, looks like what we look for in a severe weather type setup, and it certainly is. You've got the cold air. This is an ideal severe setup. The cold air coming down. You've got the jet stream winds. You've got the warm and humid air coming in from the Gulf. And boy, that's a key player right there, isn't it? That low-level jet.
Yeah, we're always looking at wind speeds. Really, in the lower level of the atmosphere, you can look at the jet stream for that indication, but wind speeds at 850 millibars and 700 millibars, that allows for some shear, and that's one of the key ingredients.
It creates that helicity, that sideways spin that can be tilted into the upright if there are thunderstorms. And, tornadoes are pretty common in our part of the country. This is interesting, Ryan. As we go through February, look at the average number of February tornadoes per state, 1999 through last year. During the month of February, Alabama, number 2 behind Mississippi. You go into March, Alabama, number 2 behind Texas. You go into April, Alabama, number 2 behind Texas, tied with Mississippi. So we are in an active part of the country when it comes to severe weather. You factor that in climatology, and then you factor in the evolution of the pattern looking a couple weeks out.
Things could be shaping up.
Could be shaping up for sure. So, hey, enjoy the weekend. The last of the snow that is out there, it will be melting away. I hope my snowmen make it till Monday. We'll see.
Yeah.
Enjoy the weekend. It's been a heck of a week for sure. And we'll see you next week right here on Weather Extra. Good night.